kick off for our guest speaker session today. So let's just grab yourself a hot drink or something cool to drink, depending on where you live. I'm sure Jerome's got a nice cool drink where we've got coffee over here with our miserable weather in England today. So just grab yourself a drink. Yeah, so like I said, I see I've been asked to say it again. Yeah, so just grab yourself a drink, get yourselves comfortable for our guest speaker session today, which we really look forward to. Like I said, depending on where you are coming in from, if you're coming in from South Africa, who are in the middle of winter, but have even hotter weather than what we're having here in our summer in England. I'm sure you'll be grabbing a cool drink and having a braai outside for all my fellow South Africans.
Yeah, it's quite warm here in the US, in Florida. So
don't make me jealous. Okay, great. All right. Okay, welcome everyone. So welcome to today's webinar session. We have the privilege of interviewing Jerome, and I know I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly, the surname. So Jerome, I'm going to let you pronounce your surname because I'll probably do a terrible job at it.
Well, I say in French it would be Hiquet, in England it would be Hiquet, in Mexico it would be Hiquet too. So as you prefer, it's going to work.
I like to call you Jerome H. Yeah, we have the honor of having Jerome as our guest speaker session today. As you saw in the advert that went out, Jerome used to be the Chief Marketing Officer of Formula E, which is a really, really exciting brand I think all of us could chat about for hours. He was also Chief Marketing and Revenue Officer for Tough Mudder, another fantastic sports organization. I believe that was based in the States when you were over there. And then prior to that, you were 6 years at Club Med, leading up as Vice President of Marketing for North America and Managing Director for Mexico. Did I get that correct?
Exactly. Exciting, no?
Fantastic. So, no pressure, Jerome. So the first thing I think is really good to kick off is just tell us a little bit about how you got to today, all about your career, your highlights, some of the things maybe you regret, you wish you'd done different. But yeah, it'd be fantastic to hear just a little bit about you.
Well, first, thank you very much to inviting me to this session. And I'm always excited to be able to speak with the next generation of marketer. Mostly because Shanna made my day, because I know I'm a Generation Y and I'm not a millennial, so I feel much younger now. So thank you very much. And yeah, indeed, I think to summarize a bit my career, it's 20 years in what I like to call direct-to-customer and experiential industry, from hospitality, travel, live event, entertainment, media, and sports. And so a lot of exciting industry to work in, a lot of transformation and disruption, I would say. And if I would have to summarize that for someone, for myself, potentially 20 years younger, I think for me, my careers have been made a lot of opportunity, luck, risk taken. But I summarize most of the time around a few phases. The first one was very much to build what I call a vertical marketing expertise in digital and customer. So I starting around 2000, more in the travel industry and the hospitality industry and e-commerce in a company named Accor Hotel, when I was working on loyalty program at a time where everyone coming from business school were going in CPG world, etc. I was working on data, which was not very sexy at that time, frankly, but it was a very good school to then go to more the e-commerce world. I went to one of the biggest e-commerce websites in France. And so during the first almost 8 years, I built this deep expertise in marketing in digital. So the first move for me was to decide, do I want to remain an expert, or do I think I would like to go on a more generalist world? And to do so, I joined in two ways, a long time ago now, a more brand marketing centric organization, Club Med, at a time where there was a lot of disruption in the travel industry around what is digital from a channel distribution, from a media standpoint, and what is our customer, what's the knowledge we could have. So I joined them. It was my first move as to lead the digital and customer, I would say, transformation at the strategy division in Paris. And it was very important for me because it was the first time when I shift from a role as an expert, as a person who have to help the change management in an international organization around the world, very decentralized. And it was a very, very exciting moment for me to learn how not only be an expert on something, but talk about an expertise and fuel an organization with this expertise. So that was very much a very important step. From there, as an amazing organization like Club Med, you have a lot of opportunity to go around the world, but also to work around the world. And I very quickly understood that remaining a strategic guy could become a weakness on the long run. And they offered me the position to become the chief marketing officer, more or less, for Club Med North America. And so I moved in 2011 to Miami. So as you can imagine, Miami, Club Med, CMO there, I didn't hesitate very much. But it was at the same time a very important challenge because it was the first time when I was becoming a generalist marketer from the brand, the communication, the product innovation, but also the e-commerce side. So, and the second challenge for me was, as you can hear with my French accent, was how to lead an international team. And I do believe it's important as a leader to be able to embrace this transformation and this change, not only in terms of expertise as a manager, but also as a leader. So I went there very quickly. They offered me the opportunity to lead a country as Mexico. So I was traveling between Miami and Mexico City almost every 2 weeks. And then there I was, to give you an idea, my days where in the morning I was speaking French as a CMO, and in the afternoon I was speaking English and Spanish as a general manager. So I was thinking awareness of the brand in the morning and P&L in the afternoon. And that was very important. And I believe it's important for marketers today to embrace this kind of hybrid role about we are building a brand, but we're optimizing the revenue. And at the end, the P&L is what is mattering. And so after a few years there in 2014, I have this interesting call from a headhunter asking me, would you be interested to join this company in a Tough Mudder? And I didn't know what it was. And they explained me one of the high growth organization in sport right now, but they are doing race in mud with obstacles. And the community are engaged, they have tattoo around it. Are you interested to come to New York? It was quite a process, but I wanted at the time, as believe that it's nice to be in big organization, but to be in small organization and high growth organization could be a very important leg in my repertoire. And so I joined them during 4 years, an amazing journey, a lot of lesson learned around what does it mean to help an organization to grow, what does it mean in terms of changing the business model, reinventing yourself, leading that. I did that during 4 years, building as much a brand. And what does it mean to have a purpose brand? Mostly right now with a lot of people are using this terminology, but Tough Mudder is a brand with millions of people doing the event, but also hundreds of thousands of people with a headband in the street and 20,000 people with a Tough Mudder tattoo. So you are speaking to a strong community. And in 2018, after 4 years there, I've been lucky to meet Alejandro Agag, which is the founder of Formula E. And after a few discussion and process with of recruiting process, they asked me to join Formula E as Chief Marketing Officer, which was a very exciting moment for me because it was a very purpose-driven organization, disruptive in industry, in disruption, and also a way for me to joining and something that I love, which is sports. So I think for me, the journey was a lot of, and I can give kind of sense of advice is every step are not well defined at the beginning. Everything is about taking risk and looking as marketing and as a marketer as a more holistic role from having an expertise, become strategic, operational, international, going in big organizations, smaller organizations. And all these elements would be part of the process, which make me feel old right now, but that was very important.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. And one thing I picked up you saying there is we all know globalization, such a massive thing in sports these days, and it's almost advantageous to be a global citizen. So would you recommend anyone going into this industry to possibly go out of their comfort zone and, for example, go and move to another country like you did, or go and learn another language, for example?
I think it's a very interesting question, because I have a strong conviction in general that the next 10, 20 years are going to be a real change in terms of how we have to think education in a sense.
Yeah.
If you think about artificial intelligence, if you think about technology, a lot of things that we knew in the past, like going to be likely automated in a way. And so I was reading this book recently about what's going to be the 4C elements we're going to make a big difference is creativity and curiosity, communication, critical thinking.
Yeah.
And so in your question, there is this question, is it worth it? Yes, it was, because that's how you're going to put yourself out of your comfort zone. To be frank, I can be very humble in the fact that I didn't like that. I'm not built for someone who have taken risk initially, and I have to force myself to do so. The first time I spoke in front of an English audience with my French accent, I was freaking out. And this first one, I have to lead a meeting with my international team in Club Med, I was scared. But when you overcome that, and we are in sport marketing, so beyond marketing, there is sport. In sport, it is all about overcoming your fear, either in training, in terms of, and I think it's the same. So I cannot only recommend, I think it's a must-have now for the younger generation to make bet. In the 20s, you are here to learn. No CMO, no CEO going to tell you, going to judge you because you don't have the perfect answer. In the 30s, it's important to start to know what you are good at. In the 40s, you start to excel at it and to have impact. And in the 50s, you have to start to give it back in a way. So yes, definitively, it's crucial for younger generation to feel ready to take risk. And frankly, the sport industry is potentially one of the best ones to do that right now.
Yeah. So let's focus a little bit about your two specific sports roles, so Tough Mudder and Formula E. How would you say they differ in terms of your experience there in their marketing departments?
I think there is a lot of similarities on them. I think I was very lucky, and I think also I chose that to be in an organization where very much purpose-driven. And I think in true sense of what purpose means, Tough Mudder was, yes, there was events, but behind the event, there was the notion of building a community of people doing, we call it extraordinary things together. And Formula E is about a cleaner future faster. And so that gives a very, very different sense of, I'm an organization who try to identify what are the societal topics that I want to embrace, and organizations who are deeply connected to a societal topic or value at its core. And that, I think, for me, it's something that was very important now to understand everything was happening. The second point, in different way, these two organizations are trying to disrupt sports. I think we are facing right now in sport a very interesting, unfortunately, moments where we realize a lot of big sports are very much relying on one revenue stream, which is media rights. And now facing this notion about what does it mean to engage a fan beyond game day, etc. And I would say Tough Mudder, because it was a smaller organization starting from scratch barely 7 years ago, had at its core this notion of fan engagement, not only around the event day, but all along the customer journey. And I would say it's very, very interesting for me to see now how we are thinking more about that. And Formula E, in the same way, wanted to bring purpose at the core and to mix this notion of entertainment and sport. So I found very lucky to be able to think marketing in a more purpose way, in a more holistic way, and also with a strong sense of revenue driven, because Formula E ticket sales and media right were under my remit. Tough Mudder, all the revenue stream at the end were under my remit. So you cannot necessarily think marketing in abstract. And I genuinely believe that the role of marketing is now to be a brand future-proof leader, a business performer, and a transformative leader. And in the past, we were able to take one bit of one and maybe go on the other side. But I've found very lucky to have been able in role where, in a way, I've been challenged and sometimes doing mistakes, sometimes being more successful, to face this 3 dimension, which is going to be at the core of what a marketer should be in the future.
Yeah. There's a question coming in from Neil Gregor for you. So it says, many of Formula E races took place on city circuits. Were there any cities you would like to have had on the race calendar?
So I was not sure to hear. So I think for me, to the notion of, so I'm going to answer in twofold. The first one is, as I left Formula E a few months ago, I will lead the core team right now, and building a fantastic team around him. So to answer that, and I'm sure Neil, you have a lot of opportunity to discuss with the current team. But what I think for Formula E, when I joined, the key point was very much this notion of in the city have been very important as a clear, unique selling point in comparison to other motorsport. To be able to race, to come to the people rather than to have the people coming to us was a key element. So for in the city was also a key element for Formula E in order to be able to create a proof of what was the core value and the North Star of this organization, which is bringing electric car. And so from there, during my time there, I've been lucky to be in amazing city in Chile, or of course in France, in Morocco, in the US, to be able to bring that energy. I think every city in the world who can enjoy and benefit from that should do so, because beyond the sport, and I always say that about Formula E, it's at the crossroad of social purpose, entertainment, and sport.
Yeah.
And not a lot of organization and sport could claim that, so I think authentically. And so, yeah, city matter because that's where entertainment is. And I think it's why also my strong conviction around sport today, and even for young marketer, is that they will have to think about sports, how they can help sport to become a 21st century entertainment.
Yeah.
Because the competition sport is not anymore about other sports. It's about attention time. And for that, you have to fight and to challenge and competition with a lot of other entertainment, digital, all my life. So that was a very interesting thing that Formula E historically, and now with what they have done recently with the E-Race, was able to do. So it was an interesting challenge for me.
Just for interest's sake, who would you say is the main target audience for Formula E?
I think for Formula E, and I think for Tough Mudder was the same. I think it's this. There is a lot of people right now, and I would say frankly for a lot of sports, I would try to unlock the notion of Formula E and to go beyond that. The younger generation, the people who want to reconcile their passion for motorsport and their understanding and about what the planet is about, I think, and the climate change impact and so on. That's audience, which is in general quite balanced men, women, which is very diverse in terms of demographic. But there is a commonality in terms of behavioral. They are socially engaged. They are maybe a bit younger, but I think this notion of ability to reconcile the passion for sport and motorsport and the their societal point of view is very much something that I think it's one of the success of Formula E. And very importantly, I think during my time at least, is to realize that Formula E is not a cause, it's a sport with a cause. And if you go to any race around Formula E, you will see that it's potentially action-packed all the time in terms of race attention. So it's very important, and I think a lot of work has been done during my time and still now is to realize how competitive this series is, how exciting it could be on TV, how exciting it could be during the race itself in the cities, and how it could be exciting also on the gaming side. So a lot of good element there, but the audience is very much, I think, the audience that a lot of sport organizations are fighting to reach right now. This younger guy, societal engaged, connected, want to have direct access and be able to influence, which I think is a key element of the Generation Z, how they can influence sports.
Yeah, I think you've triggered that excitement in me, because both you and I chat about this quite often, how passionate we are about the Gen Z market. And I made your day because I said you and I are both Gen Y, so we're a little bit different to some of the audience members on this webinar at the moment. But before we go on to chatting a little bit about that Gen Z market and how sports brands can target them, we've got a question that came in from George Parr. And if I go back to it, it says, do you have any tips for how I can get my first role in motorsports? I don't know if it means driving or if it means marketing. I presume marketing.
Yeah, I think right now motorsports is such an exciting sport. If you think about the big sport in the world, I think motorsport is right now, if you're top 5, football, basketball, I think I would say sports with an audience beyond 1 billion people. I think motorsport is the one which is more active right now. If you can go Formula One, W Series, NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula E, of course.
Yeah.
So I think in the same time, you have the more potential willingness to disrupt and innovate. So I'm going to be biased with with Formula E, but I think it's the ambition also with W Series to innovate around how we are reconciling the sport, the entertainment, and the purpose. So I think for someone wanting to join motorsport, first thing is Swiss, and I would take that in a nice way. You don't need to be a man to be in motorsport. And I heard that a lot, so I prefer to say that very clearly and loudly.
Yeah.
If you look at the recent recruitment done by Formula E, it's a lot of amazing, outstanding women in their own expertise. And so I think for me, what I want to highlight is the first tips is, if you believe that you love sports, if you believe that you have passion, if you believe that you have talent, energy, no matter if you are a woman and woman or a man or woman, I think there is a lot of growing willingness to be more inclusive around motorsports. And the CMO at Formula One is an amazing woman, which is doing a great job there too. So I think this is very important for me, because I felt when I joined, before joining, that it was a sportman, but I think it's more and more inclusive and in great way. The second point, I think when you arrive and you are a young person, we not expect you to have expertise, but we need to expect you to have curiosity.
Yeah.
You have to be hardworking, and you need to able to have point of view on things and be ready to also be open to what you know, what you don't know, and what are the expertise that you want to learn. Right now, I think there is a lot of area where you could content, live events, marketing per se. There is a lot of areas. So I think it's more knock on the door, bring your energy, bring your willingness to embrace the value of the organization you want to go in. Be hardworking, be value proposition, bring your critical thinking, and listen and to what people could tell you. I'm very cautious to not bring a specific expertise right away. Only thing that I would say is, as a young person arriving in motorsport or in sport in general, we acknowledge very clearly that they don't have a lot of experience in terms of skill sets. What we discussed early on about, I went to have my internship in another country, that's going to show willingness to take risks and to be curious.
Yeah.
I'm going to think about this topic with my own point of view. That will show critical thinking. I'm going to try to be articulate in a way I can explain. So these soft skills are very often what could make a difference. And motorsport is, a lot of people going there right now are at that. And I will recommend to have that too.
Yeah, it's really interesting because over sort of the 3 years I've worked at UCFB and a few of the guest speakers that we've had, the recurring theme, whether it was someone from Chelsea Football Club, whether it was like you from Formula E, whether it was someone from Twitch, no matter who I've brought in, the recurring theme that keeps coming through for our graduates and for our students at UCFB is that word curiosity. Show that passion, show that curiosity, because that's kind of what makes you stick out in the crowd. Because you can always, you might have 10 graduates all with the exact same degree, but how do you differentiate between those 10 graduates? And there's something I'll never forget, one of our guest speakers saying that he had also, again, a young graduate come in there and said, well, I used to actually keep a journal, and I almost created my own sort of marketing journal of this football club, and I actually developed a podcast out of it. And yes, he only had 5 followers, and it was probably his family, but that's what actually differentiated him, is he showed that curiosity, he showed that passion of sports and the love of sports, and that actually made him stand out in the interviews.
I will tell you a small story about it, and it's come back to my days at Club Med because it triggered me this one when you told me about that. I was in an interview for a digital marketer in Miami, and I was interviewing a lot of people, and there were a lot of skill sets. And this guy arrived, and from how he was expressing himself, he was clearly a geek. I can clearly see a great guy to build the platform. But at a point, I just asked the question, okay, what you are passionate about? And this guy opened his bag and started to show me his drawing, a lot of drawings that he was doing. And he wanted to do comics. And he started to explain to me the story about how he's thinking about the comics.
Wow.
And he was barely 22-year-old, and he was not good in interview for sure. And suddenly I look at him and I start to think, okay, so this guy is technically strong, I know, but he has a creative mindset behind somewhere, hidden in his bag. And today it's these comics that he started to draw for himself. If he has the skill set and he has kind of creativity, is in general what is missing in this kind of technology digital world, with how you are the technical element, which is very structured, project rigid, but at the same time you can bring this kind of creativity. And I've chosen him. And only parameter that I can remember right now for this role was when he's opened it. And I'm not sure he didn't prepare it. It's just because I push him, and I think I don't say now, guys, start to draw comics to be able to go to Motorsport. But I tell you, I think your passion is equal to your curiosity, is equal for your interest, and how you can translate that on something which is business relevant. That I think is going to be very important, because and I'm a very analytical guy and I'm a very poor creative guy, so I have to learn on that. But we are going in a world with automation going to be so much important that creativity and critical thinking going to be the only way for us as humans to not be overcome by robots in a way. So I push a lot of time on that, critical thinking, creativity, acknowledging that I'm good at critical thinking, I'm much less at creativity.
Cool. I will come back to that. We've got a question that's just come in for you. So it says, in sport particularly, the media play a huge role and have a huge influence over the general public and, as marketers, your audience. How do you personally approach interactions with the media, both for enhancement and for protection of your brand?
So I think that there is a starting point right now, which I do believe is brand in general don't have a full control and don't have any control on their brand. I think their brand is, if you want to, by definition, if you want to engage with people, you have to give up a bit of this brand. On the flip side, you need to have some foundations that are strong in order to be able to react. And so for me, the main foundation and it's something that a lot of brands faced either reactively in front of a crisis, or reactively in front of an opportunity, or reactively in front of a societal issue, is what is my North Star? What is my purpose? And I think that for me as marketer, it's sometimes the main elements that is missing in organization is this ability to explain very simply what is the issue or the opportunity that I want to tackle as an organization? What is my vision about it? What is my role about it? What is my value? And that I think is fundamental because it has to be well understood by the customer or the fan. It has to be well understood internally in order to be consistent with the media. So point number one, I would say, is to be sure that your North Star, your why, your brand platform linked to that is crystal clear, to be sure that every time you are coming back to answer a question, you are very clear on how you want to answer, what is your approach. The second point I would say is speak and answer when you have to, when you know you have something to say. I think it's very important to have really specifically PR-wise a clear sense of why I'm speaking right now, why I'm saying right now. And the third point, I think right now, we are in a world where marketing is a strategy of touch points. Every interaction, I think some brands like Disney, for me, put that at the more and at the max with a call it transmedia plan. Every touch point matter. So when I say that when you have your North Star, you need to also be clear on what is your editorial guideline. You are any brand right now is kind of a newsroom. When you want to talk about something, you need to know what are the territory you are legit to talk about, what is your point of view, and what is the tone of voice. So you have your North Star, you have editorial guideline, and then you need to be consistent on all the different channels that you can control, that your message is coming consistently. So I would say then after we can go into tactics, but for me, this notion of North Star, this notion of editorial guideline, and this notion of unicity and consistency of how you are communicating through all your platform are very much the first shield that you can build in order to be able to protect your brand or leverage your brand. The situation that we face right now, at least in the US with Black Lives Matter, is for me a good example of that. How many brands were ready to react in an appropriate way, depending on your vision, but the appropriate way from day one?
Yep.
And how they were able to execute it correctly. And a lot of brands react and say, okay, I have to have a point of view on that. But what is my point of view? And some of the brands, I took two examples because I like them a lot. But of course, the Nike example is a good one. But because they are ready from the very beginning, or what is your North Star, etc. But some of the brands like Patagonia or Ben & Jerry's are built from that from day one. Everyone cannot react the same way they are. But the notion of to be prepared and to know who you are in order to be able to react accordingly and say, I don't want to speak about it, or I want to speak about it, and this is how I want to speak about it. It's very, very important in front of the media in general. And everyone is media. Don't forget that. When you think media, your athletes are media, your player are media, your fan are media, the media are media, you are media. So I think the notion of consistency about your DNA as an organization is very important, and is why I think Tough Mudder was a very strong learning curve for me to build that. Formula E is also the same way. It's easier when you are at a core something so strong, teamwork in one side, battle for climate change on the other side. But everyone could need to do this work no matter what.
Yeah. So I've got a question. This is from my side for you. Is what would you say was a highlight for you, or something that you're quite proud of when you were working at either Formula E or Tough Mudder?
I think starting at Tough Mudder, I think every time, I will not take something which is one element, but there is a story at Tough Mudder. We created these rituals. We were a big believer in the fact that if you want to create emotional connection with people, you need to have product innovation, rituals, and emotional engagement on an ongoing basis. And so what I was enjoying every Monday morning, so we're creating this hashtag Headband Monday. So in fact, is when you have done a Tough Mudder, every Monday, we wanted to show you online. We asked you to show you online that you were proud. And so there was, I would not say, over 5 years for sure, million of hashtag Headband Monday, or 100,000 hashtag Headband Monday. And so you were seeing dentists with a patient with a headband. You were seeing lawyers where it's doctor, firefighter. Even recently, even if I'm not here, I was very moved by a doctor working in frontline for COVID-19 with a headband, Tough Mudder.
Wow.
And every Monday, even if you have sometimes tough day, I was looking at that and I say, that's what we are doing for, is to create emotional connection. I don't even talk about people who have a Tough Mudder tattoo. I raise that as a highlight because I come back to this element, which is we are in a customer attention economy right now. The question is very much how you are engaging people when the attention span is decreasing, when you have more fragmenting media, and when people behavior is changing. And when you are able to create this stickiness with your audience at a point that hundreds of people or thousands of people every week are able to share that's unique. So that was my every Monday highlights in a way at Tough Mudder. I think Formula E, I think for me one thing was very powerful was at the end of my journey with Formula E is even if this year was in particular, but we have been able to do a partnership with BTS, the K-pop band from South Korea, and they did a small video with a Formula E car to announce the race in Seoul. Unfortunately, this year did not happen. I think it's going to happen next year. But I think for me was a moment when I say, okay, first, we are bringing entertainment to sport. Second, we are partnering not with the usual one. We are going with the audience that connect. And if you are not, BTS, no worry, I didn't know a lot of them a few months ago, but it's very much the biggest boys band in a way in the world right now in terms of audience engagement, and be able to do this kind of partnership. And third, to connect also with the local audience. And I think sometimes marketing is global, but I think to resonate locally was very important. So I have this one in mind when I say it was a long journey, but I think it was very exciting to see such a big band be able to connect with such a powerful, emotional, engaged organization like Formula E.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's fantastic. So going back to, I know something we both very passionate about being the Gen Z market. So for anyone listening in and doesn't know what we're talking about, Gen Z born after 1994, and then they reached the end of the alphabet. So now they've got another one. They've gone back to A, and now we've got Generation Alpha, who were born after 2010. But as Jerome was chatting a little bit about earlier, a lot of like Formula E and Tough Mudder had quite a similar target market, quite a young target market. Jerome, you mentioned earlier a little bit about how they've got such a limited attention span, and you're fighting with the attention of so many different sports brands. How do they differ to, for example, their grandparents, that, the more sort of traditional sports lovers? And I read an article the other day, and I thought this was so true. So they said, Jerome, you and I can only go up to 2 devices at one time. So we can watch something on TV and be on our phone, whereas Gen Z can go up to 5 devices at one time and have approximately an 8-second attention span. My little boy is only 2 years old, and at 1 year old, he picked up mommy's phone and could literally start sliding through my photos at 1 year old, which just blew my mind. And I look at him and he can honestly watch the TV and have 2 other sort of devices going on. I sound like a terrible mom with screen time. But it's really interesting when you look at it like that. And just I want to hear your perspective on that is how do we appeal to this Gen Z market? How are they different to sort of your more traditional older sports fans?
I think it's a few elements there. The first one for me is I'm very sorry to not be anymore a Gen Z. That's because I'm older, but I have to live with that. But beyond that, good mention here. I think that the Gen Z generation is very much a generation we're going to be purpose driven, and I think brand and sports, and I would say can come back on that, but I think even more in sports, which I think is quite behind in the way of thinking purpose driven and to build brand, not only have team. I think this generation will care very much about what is the why of an organization, of a brand. Do I connect with this why? And not only based on product, but from a societal standpoint. Yeah. And so point number one. Point number two, I think, is so it's very interesting for me. They are community driven. They are maybe the more community centric generation. If you think about Fortnite, it's fascinating. If you look at Fortnite, Minecraft, and two other big platforms, there is 1.5 billion hours of our gaming done by close to 1 billion kids around the world.
Yeah.
Where Lego is a great brand. I love Lego. It's 400 million hours played at the same time. So I think they care about community. But what is fascinating reading about it is they want to be singular. They want to protect their singularity. And that means you need to be part of community when you can personalize it. And I think if you think about gaming, and I'm not a gamer very much, but I spend a time at Formula E and beyond a bit to think about it, is the notion of skin. When you are in Fortnite, you can purchase your own skin. You can personalize yourself. Or even if you think Nike with the customization of shoes, I think it's very important for them to have the two elements. I want to be part of community, but I want to protect my way to express myself. I would say the third element for me is this notion of direct access and flexibility and convenience. I think for them, convenience is a new luxury. And that creating a big disruption in terms of how they are consuming sport and content. I think I was reading about some fashion brand, position of Rent the Runway, which is a big brand in the US when you can rent and choose and give back. This notion of possession is disappearing for access. Access matters more than possession. So that for me is the three elements. The fourth last one that I think I would highlight is, and in the fascinating elements, I would not claim I finalized my thought about it, is a multi-identity that this generation could have. There is an in real life identity and the digital identity. And during the COVID-19, I spent more time looking at the notion of avatar and how more and more I do believe, and in 5 years' time, this session, I will do it with my avatar, you will do it with your own avatar. I'm almost convinced on this notion that we're going to start to have a dual identity of how we want to express ourselves in a digital world and how we want to express ourselves in a real world. But this generation is already there. And I think that for me is very important for brand and for marketer and for sport to be able to embrace this notion. And so that for me, why Gen Z and this new generation, the next generation of brand, we're going to be purpose-driven and successful, have to be able to engage this generation. I was reading two figures who struck me yesterday. First one, well, they're already 40% of the world right now, but their influence is 93% of the decision made in their household.
Yeah.
So if you think about them as a marketer, and I think lucky for you, young generation, because you can think like them because you are them. Exactly. But for us, it's a stretch. So it's a fascinating moment for that, and definitely something that I believe marketers underestimate and start to play catch up right now. So I feel lucky in a way to have been forced to join brand like even Club Med, but Tough Mudder and Formula E to be part of it. Early on from the very beginning.
was really interesting when you were chatting a little bit about, and it kind of ties in with the Gen Z market. You were saying Formula E was sport with a cause. And I'm sure I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. But with COVID, we've kind of seen, because of the pandemic, a lot of these sports organizations have had to sort of try to appeal to the emotions and the hearts of their fans by being, like you say, a sport with a cause and being more socially conscious. Do you think that in some way sports marketing has changed because of COVID, that you have to be seen more as a socially conscious brand now?
So I'm going to give a tip for young marketer. A tip. I think my view on this one. Yes, and my rationale is historically sport team and organization were relying on local community passion and players to build their brand and win, of course. But so I do believe you have some exception, of course, but more or less that was how you were building your sport organization. Now every team want to be global because that's where the revenue comes from. Fan are following as much the team that they are following the player, and they are more following the player. I was fascinated by this study showing that apparently when Ronaldo went from Real Madrid to Juventus, Real Madrid lost 1 million followers in one day.
Yep.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And in the same time, this player was the core of what makes this sport organization so successful, are becoming their own brand and are in general in advance in terms of purpose that they have. If you think about LeBron James right now, he has clearly a purpose. I think the situation recently happened in the US forced him to have more. He's going to be much more involved in voting, etc. So he has his purpose. He has also his platform in terms of live touch point with the games. He has his own platform in terms of content creation, and he's a player of the Lakers. So now the question is, if an organization don't have a purpose in a world that we are, when the player can have direct access and be their own brand, they're going to be play catch up all the time. So I think for me, to your point, I think this COVID is an accelerator. It doesn't change anything. It's more accelerating few elements. It's accelerating the digitalization. It's accelerating the need for sport organization to reinvent their business model, not only be driven about most for media right, and it's accelerating the need to be purpose driven. And this notion of purpose driven is as much because of the world and because of also some of the components of their own ecosystem are already very, very vocal for good reason. I think Colin Kaepernick is a good example of playing catch up between potentially NFL and what he's thinking. And so I think it's for younger generation thinking marketing right now. I believe so strongly that the concept of marketing existing in other industry are going to be so relevant for sports. I think it's an exciting time for young organizations or young people to join sport marketing because sport is changing and marketing going to be likely a know-how with such power to help sport to change, an organization to change. So I think be passionate about sport matter, but learn and through your organization, learn what are the expertise behind sport and behind marketing. Be purpose-driven. What does it mean to build a customer lifetime value approach when you have an OTT platform, etc. It's so important that, I think it's COVID accelerates some elements, which I think going to help this young generation to be even more relevant when they're going to come to the market.
Yeah. Just a reminder to everyone, you can obviously ask Jerome questions. I'm not keeping them all to myself for questions, just my questions. So do go ahead and ask some questions. We've got about 10 minutes left if you do have anything. So Jerome, I just want to chat to you a little bit about that. Can you think of an example that you personally, because I follow you quite a bit on LinkedIn and I know you put out quite a lot of content on and give your sort of opinion on a lot of sort of recent developments in sports marketing, but is there one specific example that has really stood out to you of sort of good sports marketing practice during this pandemic?
I would say that I will not highlight an organization, but I will do it. I I think ESPN and Disney did a good job right now to try to embrace a situation which is complex. And when I raise that is multiple dimension, of course, bringing this original content with Last Dance at that moment, creating a big spike of B2B and B2C interest. And I think one of the outcome from here, from a content standpoint, is for sure is going to be original content, and long-form content, as we described, is going to be much more important. So that was an element. The way they cover the NFL draft also, I think, was also interesting. The way they are coming with the NBA to create this NBA playoff style in their resorts. It's a smart way to use their touch points in an integrated way. So I think for me, it's right or wrong, I genuinely believe that young marketer right now, when they think about best practices in terms of what are the best in class to create the sport marketing of tomorrow, Disney is an interesting one, but Amazon, Spotify, Netflix in their model, which is the content, but the analytic behind that, the value of the brand is very interesting. And so is why I come back to my initial point around 21st century entertainment. I think sport have to go there. But recently, if I look at that, I was quite interesting by how they were able to catch that. And one thing that I would be very interesting is also I was very, very interested by Extreme, of course, because it's my ex-boss. We created that Extreme in Alejandro Agag, about their idea to create sponsorship packages for race. We're going to come in integrating VR and ER as part of the packages, and in a way to enhance the experience remotely in a way. And I think this notion of virtualizing the experience is going to be a very interesting one.
Cool. We got a question from Neil Gregor again. Thanks, Neil. So it says, as a marketer, do you prefer motorsport or any type of headline event to be on free-to-air television or subscriber only?
So it's the question of the decade is, if I understood well the question about what we face in sport in general is, if you are behind the paywall in subscription, you have less audience, but you have more cash. And if you go in front of the paywall, you have more audience and you have less cash. So are you building your business model one way or another? I think if I look from a right holder standpoint, I think we're going to see less and less exclusivity behind the paywall. And I think more and more more and more broadcaster and streamer are going to push to have more content in front of the paywall to attract people, because that's one point. Second point is, I'm not a big believer in the fact that people are going to be able to pay more and more. And I think mostly in the COVID situation, if you start to want to aggregate all the subscribing system to be able to watch sports, you will very quickly arrive with a lot of money. And so I think it's why a lot of brands right now are starting to think, okay, either I have to play big time on the exclusive content and the only one, and then people are going to pay, or start to diversify the model to put more things beyond in front of the paywall. And so I understand as a sport fan where I would like to see sports, but I understand where the right holder need to put the sports. I think that what I think is an interesting element here, which I don't think right now a lot of things is coming to that, but it's going to be more, is this notion of pay-per-view, how you can potentially watch sports more per game on a very seamless way. You have that right now coming in other industries like retail, when you are on Instagram and you can shop directly from your Instagram live stream and shop directly. So there is, and I think that in sport, to give flexibility, mostly for the tier 2 sport, to have simple way, limited cost way to have access to sports with a limited cost could be an option. But to your answer, me, I think I would prefer to have everything easily visible, but it's so important right now for sport to protect their revenue stream that I understand when they're coming from. So I'm a bit conflicted. So apologies for the conflicted answer.
Just for interest sake, how have, with live events, live sports events obviously being cancelled during the last 3 or 4 months, how do you personally feel brands like Formula E and Tough Mudder have overcome that?
I cannot necessarily claim too much about that because I'm not necessarily on the secret, but I think for me there is, if I look at I will look at the business model. Live events like Tough Mudder, Spartan Race, Ironman, and so on. I was normally doing the New York Marathon.
Yeah, you told me.
And it's canceled, and it's sad for me, but even more importantly, sad for this organization who are relying so much on ticket sales as one of their main source of revenue. Yeah. So I think for this organization, live events, I think we are spending a lot of time speaking about how the big players, NFL, NBA, Premier League, etc., are reacting and what they mean in terms of business model, etc. This live event organization are likely at risks if we're not helping them. So if I can use this platform, I think you can do 3 things in one could be helpful. Train for an event, and you're going to be healthy. And second, decide to go to one of these events, a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, an Ironman, a Spartan race, a Tough Mudder, and other, and you're going to help them for sure. So I'm very, anyway, serious in the sense that I believe that indirectly one of the reasons COVID-19 is so impactful too is because people are not necessarily as healthy as they should be. And so these live events are a good way to reconcile health, sport, entertainment, and achievement. And I've spent many years there. I know a lot of people who are working right now to bring back, I know some Spartan Race and Tough Mudder bringing some events right now for 2020. And I know by experience how hard is it to set up an event like that. And I know how strongly they are going to do their best to bring this event in the best way possible, that we need to reward them. On Formula E side, I think the business model is a bit more balanced. So I'm confident that it's just a slowdown on a lot of elements that have been set up for the last 5 years are spot on for the future, purpose-driven, Generation Z, engagement of fans beyond only a live event, etc. So I'm very optimistic for what they are building, what we built.
Cool. A final question from me. Where to from here, Jerome?
Sorry?
Where to from here? What are your plans now, besides Ironman?
I'm right now looking at a few people reach me to help them, to advise them around this transformation that we spent the last hour to discuss about. So I'm busy with that. I'm some few confidential projects I'm working on that may be likely going to come during the fall. I found quite, I told about early on about this notion of 20s, you learn, to 30, you are choosing what you are good at, 40s, you are trying to excel at what you are good at. And I found that helping organization in-house or in consultants to create, build, or reinvent, reimagine, scale their own business is what I like to do, because I went to big organizations, small one, some way we needed to accelerate or to scale, to reshape. And that was exciting to me. And I think right now, a lot of brand asking questions. So I'm spending a lot of time helping, discussing with people, training for an Ironman indoor, and at a point we're able to go out, because right now we are more or less in quarantine in Florida.
Cool. Well, we wish you all the best from the UCFB family. I cannot thank you enough for giving up this time. You've done 2 guest speaker sessions for me now. So hopefully the third one will be back at the stadium again, that we can see you back there. But yeah, Jerome, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. I'm sure you've been quite motivational for a lot of our students that are potentially considering going into sports marketing, and also for those who are quite nervous that have just graduated, sort of nervous about what's actually out there. So from our side, from the UCFB family, a very, very big thank you, and we look forward to working with you more in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jerome.